once again, welcome back to our live series by HDFC Life, where we are making sure that you are getting ready to bounce back. They say that the future depends on what you do in the present, and the best preparation for tomorrow is giving your best today. We know that financial security is something that has been on everybody's mind, and with our future series, Getting You Ready to Bounce Back, this is something that we are going to address today. And for that, we have none other than our Chief Investment Officer for HDFC Life, Mr. Prasun Gajri. Mr. Gajri comes with a very rich experience of 25 years in the banking industry as well as in investments. And today, he will be focusing not only on the current situation, but also how we can reach our goals towards financial security. Mr. Gajri has this wonderful anecdote on a real life experience on bouncing back. So over to you, Mr. Prasun Gajri.
It was the year 1983. A one-day match was on at Tunbridge Wells in England on a cloudy June morning. The team batting first was in a must-win situation. They started disastrously, losing the first wicket at the score of 0. Became worse, and it was 6 for 3 and then 9 for 4. As if that was not bad enough, within 5 overs the team was reeling at 17 for 5. All seemed lost. We all know what I'm talking about. This is part of Indian sports lore. Out walked a person by the name of Kapil Dev and smashed an epic 175 not out of just 138 balls. One of the best ever one-day innings. India not just went on to win that match against Zimbabwe, but eventually went on to win the World Cup in 1983, and unexpectedly so. Why am I talking about such a match in the midst of a COVID-19 crisis which is impacting the world today? Well, for the very simple reason, this is one of my favorite examples of bouncing back. India, having beaten West Indies and Australia earlier in the tournament, clearly were expected to beat Zimbabwe easily. However, an unexpected risk, an unexpected setback came in the form of a cloudy morning and some good bowling and maybe some inept batting, and India was in a spot of bother. Not just a spot of bother, pretty much dire trouble. But they bounced back. They came back strongly to win the match and the World Cup. Situation today is somewhat similar. World is going through an unprecedented crisis caused by COVID-19. Large parts of the world are under lockdown. Businesses are shut. Families and individuals are struggling. We are all keeping a scorecard of number of cases, number of deaths, number of recoveries. It is something unimaginable. Life is very different from what we are used to and what we were living before this crisis really hit us. Situation is looking quite bleak for everyone. For countries, economies, individuals, businesses, you name it. All of us are asking the same questions. When will this get over? What is the end of it? When can we resume life as we know it? When do we find a cure? Is there a vaccine? When can it come? All these are very valid questions in today's environment. The challenge is there are very limited answers, or in fact, in most of these cases, we do not have any definite answers. So what does this mean? This means, yes, there's a setback. An unexpected risk has hit us, and we are expected to figure out what to do under these circumstances. When will this get over? Frankly, I don't know, and probably no one in the world does today. But will it get over? I think yes. Most of us believe it will get over. And there are already signs which are showing that maybe things are getting better. Maybe these are false signs, but they are signs nevertheless. Parts of the Western world, the cases seem to have peaked. The lockdowns are easing in some parts of Europe. In China, life seems to be coming back to what we can call the new normal, but it's at least getting back there. In India, we have done a fair job of containing the pandemic to the numbers we have currently. It is far better than what the dire prognosis for India was made out to be before this all started. There are at least 100 labs working on developing a vaccine for this disease. And almost a dozen of them are either doing human trials or are quite close to human trials. Some drugs are seemingly working in terms of helping COVID-19 patients getting cured earlier than what they were getting before. So there are positive signs all around. So I don't believe this is not going to get over. It's a question of when and not if. So as countries, individuals, businesses, companies, what do we do in this scenario?
So there are positive signs all around, and it's not a question of if, but when. And what can we as individuals, companies, and a country as a large do in this scenario?
When we don't know when this is going to get over. And my simple answer, my simple response as an investor is to focus on preparing for the future which will be there when this gets over. And what kind of future that will be? We don't know for certain. But some things will change, some things will remain the same. Now let's look at what as a country we can do, or what as a country is going right for us within this bleak scenario, bleak economic news where auto sales are virtually zero and freight traffic is falling and petrol consumption is negligible, port traffic is not there. What is that is going right for us? Well, to start with, I think some parts of the macro are aligning for India. For one, the crude prices are pretty much at multi-year lows and are expected to stay there. That is a big positive for an energy importing country like India. Inflation is pretty much in control. Our external account looks robust at this juncture at least. The current account deficit is in control, the forex reserves are looking good. And this is one of those crises, and most crises rupee goes through a big tailspin. This is one of those crises where rupee has held its own pretty well. So clearly that is one. Inflation is weak, so therefore interest rates can come down, and RBI has already brought the interest rates down. Well, they haven't passed through the system, but my own sense is that attempts being made to do that will succeed eventually, and some more steps may be needed to ensure that, but eventually we expect the interest rates in the system to come down further. So that is a big positive sign. But apart from this generic macro data, I think there are some structural positive reasons for India as an economy. I think the first positive sign for India is we are a domestic economy. Our growth depends on domestic demand revival and not just export revival. Yes, exports are important, no doubt. But given the fact that we are a young, aspiring, and a consuming economy, if we get our act right and stimulate the domestic economy, that augurs well for our growth. This is unlike a lot of economies who are going to depend on exports to revive themselves. So that is one. Second is we are a young country, which means there is aspiration. There are people who want to consume, and things will get back to the normal much faster than some of the countries where the populations are much older. I think the third aspect which is important for India to consider is the whole role of China, or the perceived role of China in this place. Given the trade tensions, shift of manufacturing bases away from China was already happening. I think that process is only getting accelerated. And India has a good chance to get part of that business. We have businesses, large MNCs shifting out their bases from China and setting up shops elsewhere. India can compete effectively. We have already lowered our tax rates. Yes, we need to do more, but that is one area where India can definitely do better. And this is an opportunity for us. Another thing I think which I'm quite hopeful for, and there are already some signs that may be coming, is that structural reforms in India tend to happen when our backs are to the wall. Think about 1991 and what happened then. Situation today is not very different from those days. Economy is in big turmoil and in trouble. There are a lot of challenges at this point of time. Given that, one would expect more structural reforms to come through, which have a very positive bearing on the economy for the long term. Already there are some media reports that the government is thinking about agricultural sector reforms, especially on how to get the food from or the crops from the farm to the fork in a more efficient manner than the current APMC method. I think this augurs really well, and if India can pull off some more structural reforms, including agricultural reforms during this phase, that augurs very well for the economy. So these are some positive signs. What does India need to do to kind of make use of these opportunities? Obviously, it has to prepare well. The government has to play its part, has to stimulate the economies within the fiscal space, the right parts of the economy. The central bank has to do what it needs to do, ensure that the financial system is ready for the growth, ready to ensure credit to the last mile. The system has to ensure that MSMEs, which provide a large amount of employment, tide over this crisis by and large, and live to see the day when COVID-19 is no longer there and grow at that point of time. As businesses and as individuals, we need to take steps and work harder to ensure that we take advantage of the opportunities which come at that point of time. In short, India needs to prepare for that event. What about the businesses? What about the companies? Well, this is a very difficult time for businesses, as we all know. Cash flows have dried up. Practically, businesses have no business at this point of time in a lot of cases. So what do businesses do? Well, clearly, they tighten their belts, cut costs, generate efficiencies, think of newer business models. How can they do business in these dire circumstances? Business models will evolve. Some businesses will die, no doubt, but that is a natural consequence of things. Other businesses will adapt. And as an investor, when I look at these businesses, what do I look at? I look at businesses, one, which can survive this phase. Survive this tough and challenging period because they have the wherewithal to do so, because they have done the right things in earlier days, they are better prepared, they have the balance sheets to tide over. And number two, the businesses who can evolve, who can have a business model which survives in the newer age. That is the world post-corona. So therefore, the businesses which need to do well going forward also need to prepare for that. Newer business models, what will work, what will not work, how do you tide over this tough phase? All that is very important, and that preparation has to come through.
Right. But I'm also sure that countries and economies, they definitely are doing their bit. But as individuals, what is it that we can do?
Well, I think the story for individuals is pretty much the same. Nothing different. We all have to prepare. And how do we do that? I think first and foremost, like a business needs to survive, we need to stay safe, stay healthy, and ensure that we do not do anything which endangers anyone catching the pandemic. Beyond that, we need to invest in ourselves, maybe acquire new skills, maybe learn something new, which will help us in times to come. And most importantly, I think from a financial planning perspective, we need to review and reassess. Some of us are very good at that, but most of us are not. It is time we review what our financial goals are. Do a reality check. What is worth it, what is not? What do we want to do? And at the same time, reassess our portfolio, the portfolio allocation. Where are we invested in? Why are we invested in those assets? Is the portfolio allocation good enough to meet my financial goals? And when we do that, let's look at a few aspects. I think the first aspect is looking at what my both my short-term and my long-term requirements. Do I have enough cash to tide over difficult times? Do I have enough liquid investments to tide over this phase? And am I invested in a manner which takes care of my retirement, the longer term, which a lot of us forget most of the times? Do I have the assets? Will I have the corpus to live the life I want to live after retirement? I think it's time to assess that, and assess that in a very serious manner. Second aspect, do we have the safety net in case some things go wrong? When I say safety net, we need to look at insurance, whether it's life insurance or health insurance. Have I planned for certain significant life events? Do I have the right products, maybe some kind of insurance products or some kind of other financial products, which can provide me the required cash flow at critical junctures of my life. Have I done that? I think this is one aspect. We often neglect that. We have the time today, and it's time to contemplate, time to think it over. Let's do it seriously. Second aspect I want to focus on, and this is a question I get asked a lot nowadays: where to invest? What to invest? I think the first answer is investing is not about chasing the highest returning asset. Investing is a way to invest where by investing you are able to meet your financial goals. The amount of risk you take should be in line with what it takes to meet your realistic financial goals, and not just invest for the highest yielding asset, because then you are really ignoring risk. Other thing which we all talk about in the financial markets is the aspect of greed and fear. When does greed happen? When the markets are doing very well, everyone is investing, we are investing on dips, we are chasing returns, and at that point of time, frankly, risk be damned, nobody really cares about it. And that is the mistake, and all of us know that is a mistake, and a lot of us learn about that in a very painful manner. I think a similar mistake can be made today, not out of greed, but out of fear. Fear may keep us from making the right kind of decisions. We may be very mindful of taking any kind of risk at this juncture, and that will be a big mistake. We need to ensure that our portfolios are in a position that when this phase is over, they're able to do well. And obviously the portfolios have to be in line with our long-term asset allocation. So when you do your asset allocation, please do not be fearful of allocating whatever is required to the riskier assets. Yes, there is volatility, but volatility is about market trying to discover a price. And volatility is not happening today, it has always been there. In this kind of a market, one may be able to buy some very good assets at cheap prices. Fear may keep us from taking advantage of that situation. So let's not try and make the same mistake as we do with greed and this time out of fear. Let's avoid that. Another thing, we all need to remember that what worked in the past may not work for us in the future. As an example, fixed income did surprisingly better than equity over the last 5 years. What will do better over the next 5 years? Well, maybe equity does better. So what one should do? Work with your financial advisor, do your own research, come to your conclusions, and allocate right. And do not be fearful. And that is the best preparation as individuals we can do for our financial portfolio. And also remember, it is next to impossible to do market timing. So if you believe the prices are right and the market is giving an opportunity, please take advantage of that and do not be swayed by fear at this juncture. To sum it all up, I think as a country, as economy, as individuals, we need to be hopeful. We need to keep a positive attitude. And as we discussed, we need to prepare. Prepare for the time when this all gets over and we are in the right shape to take advantage of the situation at that point of time. Because if we do not prepare today, we will not be able to reap the right kind of rewards when the situation gets over. So what do we do today? Well, stay safe, stay healthy, and be ready to bounce back. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gajri, for those valuable insights. I now can see that a good financial plan is like a roadmap. The choices that we make today will affect our future. While there is very little that we can do about the external forces, we definitely can work harder on ourselves. And that is why right here at HDFC Life, we will keep bringing you the Ready to Bounce Back series. My name is Freishia. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'll catch you again very soon.